Hello, boils and ghouls. You are now tuned in to PVD Horror Podcast. Pleasant screams.
Hey, what's going on? You're now tuned in to the PVD Horror Podcast. I'm Brandon, and I'm joined by my co-host Dave. And today we have screenwriter and author Eric Miller to talk about his new novel, Whatever Happened to Uncle Ed. Eric, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it very much.
No problem. So now, you spent many years working in Hollywood. Can you describe how you first broke into the business?
I bribed a bunch of people. No, I did. I did the time-honored tradition. That's a question that comes up even this day when people say, "How do you get into Hollywood? How do you get into Hollywood?" Well, you move to LA. I mean, there was a lead up to it, going to college, getting an internship at Orion Pictures. But essentially, at one point, I just got in the damn car from Indiana and drove to Hollywood. And many, many years ago. And that led to, there's just no way to describe, if you ask people who've been in the business for a while, I think a lot of them have the same tact, other than, the few people that go to UCLA or NYU or USC Film School. You just kind of come out here, and the people that you meet at, in my case, the theater job I had at night to pay the rent led to my first on-set experience, and connections at my internship, but led to some of the best friends that I still have this day, but also led me into script development and writing and stuff too. So I moved out. The short story is I moved to LA.
Yeah.
Is it like one of those things where you have to pay your dues, so to speak?
Still paying them 30 some years later, still paying them. You're only as good as your last job. And again, it's on the outside, it seems to be a town of people who aren't very loyal and flavor of the moment and those kind of things. And that's very much true. But there are a lot of deeply loyal people out here. Once you build up your reputation, it's kind of like when you get jobs and things like any industry, but ours is kind of on steroids. It's people don't check your resume as much as they look on IMDb, see who you've worked with. And if they know somebody you worked with, call them, check you out, that kind of thing. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Now, your passion of writing and screenwriting all started at a young age. I seen like a cool story about when you were a kid and how you got in trouble, how horror got you in trouble in school. Can you share that with our listeners?
Yes. I had forgotten all about that, and I was updating my bio, and I put it in there because bios are so dry and boring, and I wanted to have a little fun. But I forget what grade it was. I remember it being fourth grade, but it might have been sixth or something. I don't know. I still have the story somewhere, but I wrote a creative writing assignment. I wrote a short story about a blood-stained executioner's block that is quietly laughing as the blood seeps into it and as the latest axe comes down. And I think it was a parent-teacher meeting or a principal meeting, but I do remember like getting a phone call about that from, or the parents did anyway, about what's going on with Eric. So to me, it was just a fun, goofy little story. And it's terribly written. I think it's probably 2 pages, and I think I dug it out the other day. I'll have to proudly stick it up somewhere with all the grammatical errors that I'm still making to this day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You've been working in the film industry for a very long time, and you've had been able to work on projects with some well-known people. Is there any of those experiences that kind of stick out into your head with some of the individuals who would be well-known in the horror genre specifically?
In the horror genre, it's tough. I mean, I've worked with tangentially. I haven't worked on a lot of the big horror franchises, but I've been with. I'm proudly a blue collar guy. I've been above the line. I've been, screenplays produced, but in general, I'm a behind the scenes guy. So and I don't mix a lot. But I was telling somebody the other day that my very first film, Bill Moseley, was on it, and he was playing the evil. Spoiler alert: the evil robot in Crash and Burn, made 100 years ago, and he wasn't quite a horror icon yet. But working with people like that behind the scenes, and I've you just run into people. Like I'd completely forgotten that I knew Greg Nicotero because we had, I rented things from KNBFX and things. And I think it was probably a year ago at a concert or something. There's these, me and another long-haired guy looking at each other like, do we know each other? And we hadn't actually seen each other forever in a day. So we're not, I'm not saying we're close friends or anything, but we interacted quite a bit in the day. And just Bob Kurtzman as well. That the whole K&B world and some of the effects people. My friends, Jerry Macaluso and Roy Knierim ran K&B Effects, and they were a smaller version of, I'm sorry, not K&B, Soda Effects. They were a smaller version of K&B, and a lot of their technicians went back and forth. And so it was just kind of, you go on this low budget movie, you never know who you're going to meet and who you're going to get. And I know everybody wants to focus on stars. I do have to say probably the biggest in my world and very meaningful was when I was a head of production at Raw Nerve a while ago. We made 2001 Maniacs remake.
Yeah.
And Lynn Shay, who became a friend to this day, we still trade messages. And Lynn is the most amazing, talented, funny, incredible actress. But Robert Englund is the quote unquote villain in that, if you've seen the film. And I was kind of in an executive position, but it was still a very low budget movie that we're trying to figure out every way that we can to pull off what was written in a little tiny small town in Georgia. And Robert Englund not only played the part like amazingly well, just shockingly well, but he was also the nicest guy ever. And I don't know if you've ever interviewed him or heard him talk, or maybe he had as much caffeine as I did that day, but he just talks a mile a minute and he's full of stories and was just on one of my most stressful days ever, just trying to pull everything together. Robert kind of came over to me and was, kind of that just almost like a big brother thing, like, relax, kid, we got this, it was like, awesome. And it was amazing that the lead actor saw that a producer was having such a bad day. So that one, I cherish those memories. And it was very hot, very humid, but getting to meet Robert and Lynn and others on that film, those are the kind of things that you keep with you for the rest of your life. And 100%. sadly fell out of touch with him, but I know he's just an amazing talent. And as we all know.
Yeah. I love that you just made that Greg Nicotero statement too, because as soon as you said his name, I was like, he kind of looks like Greg Nicotero, and you kind of acknowledged that.
Yeah. No, I was laughing. I this is my short hair. I had longer hair then, and I still remember it was, and it was there with mutual friends, and I came in late, and they're chatting with the guy at the bar, and it was these two older, long-haired guys looking at each other like, "Do I know you?" I think we said it at the same time, and I was like, "Oh," but yeah, I didn't work with them directly, but I remember, like, actually for 2001 Maniacs, I believe we had to have K&B make a head for us, a decapitated head, which when you see those in a movie, you don't realize how quite expensive they are and how hard they are to get done right. And they did an amazing job on the head for that. Now I'm forgetting which character even got their head cut off, but just, again, lots of mutual friends and just amazing watching, obviously K&B were huge and giant and very, very well deserved. And then seeing Greg take off and take over the universe with the whole Walking Dead franchise and everything. It's just like it couldn't happen to a better, more talented person. So awesome. I should have stayed in better touch.
Now, you had the opportunity to screenwrite Ice Spiders, which was able to take off and premiere on the SyFy channel. What were some things that you learned from that project?
Wow, what did I learn from that project? I learned to not say no, because initially the producer of that, Jeff Shank, who I'd worked for as a crew member many times, and had actually championed a werewolf script that I wrote. He was trying to option it and couldn't, and since it wasn't available, long convoluted story that led to me writing the Dog Soldiers 2, which is still unproduced. That's a whole nother story. But Jeff called me and said, "Hey, I'm going to do this SyFy movie." And I was a little hesitant at first because I'm a SyFy movie channel fan. I love giant monster movies. I love bad movies, good movies, and just fun movies. And at first, he said that we have the title. It was Ice Spiders, which I immediately said, shouldn't that be Snow Spiders? But and he had a couple of things that the network wanted, but in general, it was kind of up to me. And I believe I said no in the beginning because I was like, is that what I really want to be doing? And then and Jeff kind of twisted my arm, and it was at a time where it sounded like a fun project, and I had the rough idea in my head, and the first draft was way overly complicated and stupid. I had to trim that back, of course, but it ended up being one of those. The lesson from that, to answer your question, is don't say no, because we have a saying in the business too, is when you work crew too, sometimes you get offered a day's worth of work or something, just take it, because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know who it's going to turn into more days if just a paycheck, but you might just meet somebody that might change your career or might change your life. Or it's just a little bucks in the bank and you got some bad or good craft service for the day. But just say yes. Say yes more than anything.
Yeah. I wanted to just point out, so I was kind of going through all your long list of credits, and the film stuck out from my experiences back in the day. And it was a movie I saw late night, like way too young. I think it was on Cinemax or HBO, called Beach Babes from Beyond.
Yes.
Oh man.
Oh,
yes.
it is so funny. I just met, believe it or not, I just met Michelle Bauer for the first time at a friend's barbecue this last weekend. And we've been, again, our circles have been running around each other for my entire career and her entire career. And she didn't know me, but I obviously knew her. And she had worked for those same producers that did that. And right before I got in the industry, they did the infamous Sorority Babes and the Slime Bowl Bolorama. So we were literally just talking about this. And I've said this story for years. I was relatively new to Hollywood. I think I was the production manager on that, and working with John Schuweiler and David Dakota, who taught me so much about the business. Just two of the funniest, smartest, whip smart guys. You've seen their credits, miles of credits on both of them, from Corman to Full Moon to Dave's company, 1111, whatever his companies are called. But they've just produced, directed, done everything. So I get this opportunity at a really early age to work with them, and I was kind of on staff for a while. And we're in the beach in Malibu, and I remember calling my mom. I'd probably been out in Hollywood a couple of years at that point, and I'm like, "Mom, you're not going to believe this. I'm going to spend 3 weeks on the beach in Malibu with a bunch of half-naked women making this weird alien science fiction comedy." And she said, "Eric, what are you doing with your career?" And I was, "Mom, didn't you just hear what I said? I'm spending 3 weeks on the beach with a bunch of half-naked women making a thing." So, and it's a fun movie. I think the hilarious one on that, I think it won the AVN softcore. It wasn't really softcore porn at all, to be honest. It wasn't porn. It was a weird it was an exploitation, fun way science fiction. But it won the AVN award that year, I believe. And it was a fun experience. And and I tried to keep my eyes on my job as much as possible.
Well, that was like one of those films, and there was a number of them at that time. Bikini Car Wash and all these other ones.
Yeah.
But that was it was like late night adult television. And I was thinking to myself today, I was like, I don't think we really have that anymore because of people's access to like internet and obviously adult content on there. Like, it's kind of like people are skipping over that step of like the softcore thrills that like us teens would be seeking.
Well, and even if it's not the sex part, but I mean, it's sexploitation movies, but they're just kind of fun. They're like I said, they're science fiction, they're horror, and okay, I forget which director said it to me at one point, but he said the two best pieces of set dressing were a sunset and a woman's breasts, and I'm like, well, okay, I get it. Again, he made a lot of that. A lot of that type stuff. But I'm not trying desperately not to be sexist. That's what he told me. But that whole world of those things.
I think we can figure out which filmmaper that might have been, actually.
I'll let you previously. I'll let you guess later, and then I'll see if you're right or wrong. But that whole genre of movies and the go-go 80s. I got in at the end of the go-go 80s, which, as you guys probably know, or if people who don't know the history, is when VHS came out and the studios hated the VHS. They thought it was going to rip them off, but people got players and there were video stores and people wanted to watch stuff. So these mad people went out there and were just slapping anything in the world with a great cover or whatever actor they could get. And again, giant spiders, half-naked women on the beach, and great titles. I mean, how can you not want to watch Sorority Babes and the Slime Bowl Bolorama?
Right.
I mean, who doesn't want to watch that? So, but so I got into the tail end of that, and there were so many people running around making those, and it's kind of a weird little lost world. I don't know there's any number of people kind of you go on YouTube or wherever, watch the free channels, and there's all kinds of Tubi. There's a lot of little kind of things, but there was kind of an art to that exploitation. And again, I hate the term exploitation because it definitely was, but you go back to Frank Henenlotter and all the Roger Corman, all those guys back in the day. They just knew what sold and what people wanted to see in a drive-in, and they just intrinsically knew what was going on, and it is kind of lost now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. So another aspect of your career that I find fascinating, we've had a few people come on and tell us their stories, but being a screenwriter, we've had some screenwriters come on and talk to us about how sometimes it can be really challenging. Like the thing that you put out there doesn't always turn out the way that maybe you envisioned it. And at times, like sometimes you have to just sit back and kind of go with it, but sometimes it might cause some difficult feelings. Have you ever had an experience like that or been kind of like around one? Okay. Yeah. Any would you be willing to share?
Many. You try hard to not be negative because there's so many things to be negative about in Hollywood. But at the end of the day, you have to go, hey, I'm in Hollywood. I'm doing this. Right. Even if it's a, whatever low budget film or whatever, you're still here. You're still doing it. And, so many people want to be in your position. But no, there's the joke in Hollywood that you turn in like, pick your whatever. It's a historical drama and they turn it into a musical Western. And there's endless fights with producers and directors and people that will want to cut and paste the script or just want something completely different. There was an early one story, again, I won't name who it was. It went on to a really, really much better career than me, but we were pitching a story about a young girl that goes to the country, and it's all about her falling a fresh air program and falling afoul of redneck country people. It was more drama than horror, but that's intrinsic to the story that it's an inner city girl that goes out, and we're finally meeting with this big producer to see if he wants, and he was like, yeah, let's see, what do we think about Macaulay Culkin in this? And now you're like, the answer should have been absolutely brilliant. Let me change that to Macaulay when Macaulay Culkin was, the giant of cinema. And instead at the time you're like, wait, do you not get this? Like, did you not read this? The answer was he actually got it better than we did. I wrote it and there was a producer friend on it. But he got it better than we did because, again, like those old school hucksters, or if you want to call them that, he knows what sells. He knows what gets movies made. And, again, the young, ignorant version is like, well, that's stupid. But the smarter, older me would be, hell yes, let's rewrite this for him and figure out how to make it work. And that's kind of the art. A lot of screenwriters, there's so many stories about this, and I'm sure you've talked about it, and I could go on for hours, but you've got to put your ego aside. You write your baby, it's there, and you've got to be ready for it to be ripped apart. I personally hate change for change's sake, which, if that makes sense, you get a lot of that. You get a lot of notes that somebody just wants something different. Sure. But every script ever written, including mine, needs work. We all do. Like novels need editors. Any writer who says they don't need an editor or a screenwriter that says it doesn't need a rewrite, we're all wrong. You just got to. It's hard to put your ego aside because it's your baby and you're in love with the scene. And there's even tricks. I know you hear writers, well, I stuck in that extra scene so that when they want to cut something, I could take it out. And that's just stupid when you get right down to it. You put your best stuff out there, and when the notes come in, the hard part is, and again, this is the part that took me years to figure out, is making those people happy. Because at the end of the day, hopefully they're paying you already. If not, they're going to pay you, and they're going to make your movie. So you've got to listen to what they say. This is what they want. It's not your baby anymore. And the thing for beginning screenwriters to remember is you're writing a blueprint. You're drawing a blueprint for this, and you do the best blueprint you can. But the interior decorator, the contractor, if you're in house terms, there's 100 people are going to come in and look at your blueprint, change it around. You didn't know this building code that, or whatever it is. A bunch of people are going to change it, and the art is dealing with that gracefully, but also creatively. And luckily, sometimes you get to work with great directors and producers that recognize that you're the person that knows the story the best and the characters. And how do we get to what you want with and incorporate your changes without wrecking the whole thing? And so again, the deeper you get into it, the more professional, more experienced producers and executives you get, they do understand that. But as the writer, you do have to sit back and go, okay. And it's hard. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
Which is the complete opposite in the novel or short story form, where you're everything. Right. You're the writer, director, producer. Yeah. You're the DP. You're picking the staging, the blocking. It's 100% you. And that's also a little bit intimidating because there's a certain thing in some of my scripts anyway, you get to a point where you can't figure something out and you just let it go because you know there's going to be rewrites, but you also know that somebody will figure that out visually. Sometimes I've said it, I can't figure out this transition or how to crack this thing, but you have the beauty of collaborating. You get a really smart director. Sometimes the actor comes up with a great line that helps the transition. You really have to be ready for that collaborative process, and that's what filmmaking is. And again, the writer that sits at home and says, this is mine, I don't want to change anything. Well, okay, you're kidding yourself. You're fooling yourself.
I want to thank you for that. Actually, that was a really informative way to look at screenwriting versus like writing a novel. And I think sometimes that's lost on us because we hear the stories and we hear the frustrations, but you're right. Like it is a different process, and it does have to go through a number of other individuals in order to become the creation it's going to be. So you going into it thinking like this can't change is a rather naive thing to think that you wrote this perfect thing that's going to translate directly to this super intriguing storyline visually. So I just want to thank you for that, because that's the first time you've really come on here and shared that perspective. I really appreciated that.
Oh, good. No, I love sharing that and sharing my experiences coming up both on the crew side. I'm one of those relatively unique beings that from the writing side, screenwriting side, but also the crew side. And also I've been crew member, but I've been a producer, production manager. I've seen every different angle. And it's interesting when you meet people. There was a TV show I was working on a few years ago with some producer friends, and I was just in transportation, and had these really cool, smart PAs. And these two guys were really smart and all over it, and I could tell they were new. And so I always go out of my way when I see somebody that's new to help them out, because I still remember to this day being my first day on set, and some of the people that reached out and said, "Hey, dumbass, don't do that, do this." Some of those people are still my friends, and I appreciated that so much. And that's most film people, by the way. There's some hard asses out there that teach you lessons the hard way. But so I just got to chatting with these guys, and they were busting their ass and working really hard. And I was like, "So is this, just trying to get to know them? Is this, have you been PAing before? Are you interning? What are you doing?" And they're like, "Oh, we're the writers." And I was like, "Excuse me?" And they said, "No, and that particular show was known for taking non-professional actors and making, some of them became stars, and bringing non-professional people in. And they did the same thing with these kids. And I don't know if it was a program or if it's just the producers reaching out to people that they knew, but really, and giving a unique, fresh air to this whole thing and a different vibe. And it was very much that way on the set. But when they said that, I was like, oh, wow. And they said, they want us to learn every single bit of production from the ground up so that as our careers flourish, we understand. And I love that. I went in and thanked the producer for doing that. I didn't even know that was happening. But you can see that the people, like they say, a lot of great directors come from editors, from being editors, because they can see the final product and what you need. And a lot of great directors are DPs. But people, I just no shake against somebody who just wrote their first script and directed it and came out of the gate at the top position. But in the broad generalities, over the years, the number of people you work with, the people that have worked their way up and learned the positions and know what people are going through, again, in this hyper collaborative process, I think the end result goes on the screen. And it's fun when you hear stories like this. I might have this wrong, so I always say, internet, please don't kill me. But if I remember the story right, for a brief period, I got to drive Walter Hill home on the Deadwood pilot, which was an amazing show, and the pilot was incredible. And if people don't know Walter Hill now, he's just one of the absolute giant titans of Hollywood, and just has written and directed and made so many things. But he said, and if I believe it right, he started off as a second AD. And I think he said that the loader was his current DP, that they had kind of come up together in the business. And these two guys met as friends decades ago and stuck together and reached these heights of of everything. I'm hoping I remember that story right, but I've encountered other people like that before, and you just and I do it. There's people that you look around sometimes, and filmmaking is this weird, messed up family, a good family in a good way, that people outside of it don't understand. And there was a film, probably it's been 10 years ago or more, we were all out on a tech scout and at the Disney Ranch or something, and it just kind of happened. Everyone just spontaneously stopped and looked around, and you realize that we had all been working with each other on 10 or 15 movies over the last 10 or 15 years. And it was like, just literally at that second, everyone realized it. And we all just kind of started laughing like, oh, we're back home. It's the family reunion. And that was because that producer hired a lot of the same people. But, we when you work with someone you really like in another department that makes your life easy, or in my case, you see somebody that's really good, I tell producer friends, or, hey, consider this person for that. And so I'm just rambling, but that's that kind of family type thing that happens in film. And I awesome. Extend that to people that I've never met before, like somebody who had the nerve to jump in the car and come to LA and try to be a writer or whatever. Ask me advice. I'll tell you everything, what not to do if I can.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome because, before getting into this, we just seen what was in front of the lens, on TV, but having this channel, definitely opened the door to kind of see all behind the scenes of filmmaking and having you on sharing your stories and you appreciate film so much more. And then now in our local community, we have friends that are making films, and everything's just taken off so fast. And so these experiences for me and Dave have just been really great. And, like we said, thank you so much for, sharing that behind the scenes, conversation and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And to anybody watching or listening too, it's the same thing as you get, especially on a horror set, but most sets, once you finally get there, it doesn't have to be, it could be the smallest little independent movie made for $5 in Rhode Island, or it could be, you can finally make it on your way a set out here. Most people want you to succeed and want to help. And that's kind of a beautiful thing about film people. And like I said before, there are some assholes that want other people to fail. And there is the joke in Hollywood that it's not enough for you to succeed, your friends must also fail, but that's not true at all. And I'm very happy to have helped a ton of people along the way, because again, people helped me in the beginning, and that's life also. If everybody reaches out their hand and helps one person, be it at work or on the street or whatever, everybody helps one person a little bit more each day, the world's a better place. It doesn't have to be something big or small. Sometimes it's just a kind word, or a bottle of water, or, hey, here's how you set up a C-stand on set, or make sure you stay out of the actor's eye line when you're doing that, and whatever variation you have in every job around the world, it's just everybody helped out a little bit more, we'd all be in a better place.
Yeah. And congratulations on being the Bram Stoker Award nominee. That's really big.
That was and startling. That was my very first book. I'd been dreaming of making books forever, and we all fall back on the adage of write what you know. And I'd been doing horror for 20 plus years, and I knew Hollywood. So that's where Hell Comes to Hollywood anthology came from, and reached out to, no gigantic names, although Lynn Shay is in there. She did a thing in there for me, which was great and fun to work with. But the people just came out with the creativity was amazing and fun. And to get nominated I'm still in the Horror Writers Association and love it. And as I've said before, getting to meet some of the people that I grew up reading, become friends with some, but also eventually buying stories from people that holy crap, I read your books and now I'm buying something from you. And you're also intimidated. Do you mind if I give you a note on page 4? Because this could be, but it's been a wonderful experience. And again, to be nominated, to be, I can't even imagine winning, but to be in that arena with so many vastly talented people, it's just, it's an honor just to be in, to let alone have my first book be nominated. It's incredible. Sure.
Now let's talk about your new novel, Whatever Happened to Uncle Ed, that debuted this year. How was that, able for you to release that? How long have you been working on that for?
Well, I've been working on it far too long. There's an adage that when you write, especially prose, when you write something, put it in the shelf and let it set, let it gestate for a while and come back. I spent far too long on it, but life intervened, many things. But it went from a short story to a novella, and then I played with it as a screenplay, but never really got off the ground as a screenplay. And then I finally went back and said, no, this is bigger than a script. There's much more in here. And I finally just sat down and wrote the novel. And there was a little bit of, I have to say, say, not imposter syndrome, but all writers have it, all creatives have it. There's fear of success, fear of failure, imposter syndrome, writer's block, put whatever name you want on it. But there's things that stop you, and you question yourself along the way, and you go, is this really good? Am I really a good writer? And do I suck? And that's for beginning writers. There's the old joke that if you haven't been rejected 1,000 times, or until you've been rejected 1,000 times, then you're a real writer. That goes hand in hand with doing the same thing over and over with expecting the same results means you're insane. But all artists have to be a little bit insane. So you just keep going, and you hopefully are smart enough to look back and evaluate your own work, have editors, have other people evaluate your work, and say, hey, this is pretty good. So when I wrote it, I finished it. I thought it was done. I had to make it longer to meet a certain word count to go out to all the big publishers. They all rejected it, which I expected they would, because it's an odd duck. It's horror, but it's action and humor and romance and mystery and basketball. So it's not easy to hang one easy marketing hook on it. And I play a little bit with the grammar and the narratives. Like my chapters are the present tense are now, and that's in the present tense writing, and the flashbacks are then, and it's all in past tense. So I broke a lot of rules as a first-time writer, but it was like my story. I've lived with it for a while. I'm just going to tell my story. And for the first time, I really drilled down. I had 2 different editors help me with it from various levels, and because I know I've got some bad grammatical tics, and I say, hey, get these out, because I don't know if you guys know this, but when you're writing, even with the best intentions, you sometimes can't see your own errors. You can't see the typo because you know what it's supposed to say. But also you can't necessarily, just like in a screenplay, you think that story moment is terrific, and it turns out it's weaker than you thought, or you need to amp it up, or you need to add something to it. So early on, my sometime screenwriting partner and best friend, Patrick Shafar, said he had read an early draft and was around it a lot. And as I say in the foreword, he said, hey, why don't you make this a little more about love and a little less about hate? Because there was a lot of spleen venting in me in this story. And it's a horror story. There's reasons for it all. It's motivated, and as you'll see if you read it, there's a reason for the characters doing what they do, and the main character just being this revenge-fueled Wolverine in a case, and that goes beyond all reason. And Pat was right, and there was a love interest in the book, but I just didn't have it in there, and I did a rewrite on it, and I brought that relationship to the forefront, and it made both main characters better. It made the entire story better, all of the themes, and hats off to him for saying that. And as I say in the forward too, that's kind of a life lesson. It's make things a little more about love and a little less about hate, even in a horror novel. So writing that, when I finished it, I dedicated it to my mom, because it's a very when you get past all of the guns and demons and spells and crazy almost haunted houses and weirdness going on, it's a story about a boy and his mom. And the boy lost his mom at an early formative age. And as the story starts, he's now a man. And there's all these flashbacks to how that has affected him and all the anger and things that he holds within him. And so just trying to put all of that in and make the characters as real as possible, but still within a horror context, and also make it fun. So I'm rambling again, but when I finally finished it, I was trying to have it out on my mom's birthday. Didn't make that deadline, but I came very close to it. And to call back to the original thing, what I said about starting from a place of imposter syndrome, am I really a writer? I felt like I was a real writer for the first time. I mean, I've sold scripts, I've sold short stories, I've been nominated as an editor. I'm not the biggest, but I've done stuff out there. There's some validation. Some of my stories have been recommended in Best Horror of the Year, things like that. But for the first time, I looked in the mirror and looked at myself and said, I'm a real writer now. I've done this. And it was a huge weight off the shoulders and all that, to just say, I deserve my place here. And that's not to say everybody's going to like it. I'm sure there's going to be absolutely horrendous reviews roll in. And that's another thing that writers need to be ready for, is just when you put your heart and soul into something, to just have someone you've never met just take you apart down to the atom. And sometimes it's deserved. Like I said, sometimes there might be a weak point, but you just gotta love your story, love your characters, and in this case, this is me. It's my story. If people don't like it, good for you. I don't expect everyone to, but I think other people are going to love it. And a lot of people who've read it have seen they've seen things in it that I didn't actually necessarily see at the beginning. Which again, I knew there were some elements in there about trauma and healing and PTSD. And one reviewer very succinctly pointed out that it's really about a collection of people in this horrible situation coming together and helping each other get through these horrific events. And again, as a writer, I knew that, but that's part of the story, but I didn't think that it would impact a reader that way. And I was like, and that was like reading the review was like, oh crap, I wrote that. Wow. And,
yeah.
It's really special because, like you said, people are going to review things and things aren't for them. You know what I mean? Like, but you're creating something that's true to you. We just had a musician on and, like he said, he wasn't going out to sit there and gravitate towards what's cool, what everybody else is doing. He moves to his own beat of his own drum, and that's what keeps him going. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. All that noise out there, you just got to continue to keep pushing and creating stuff that you love, because that's what's going to make you happy at the end of the day.
100%, and that's what matters. And not to say that you shouldn't listen to people if there are criticisms of this. There's critiques, and like I said before, change for change's sake, I don't like. But if you see, there's another saying in screenwriting, and I tell people this, and I take the advice myself. If one or two people don't like certain things, that's one thing. If three or more people don't like something, you have a problem. You need to fix it.
Yeah,
but
you gotta look at it.
But that's actually what you just said about your musician. That the advice. I should have known this. Maybe people gave it to me and I didn't listen, but this is the advice I tell people, beginning screenwriters, any type of writer, any type of artist. Write what you want to write. There's going to be any number of people out there tell you not to. And well, you should do this or you should do that. And at the end of the day, tell your story, because you got to live with it the rest of your life. This, and especially now, we don't have remainder bins anymore. These things stay on Amazon or whatever forever. So this is going to outlive you. And that's the beauty of it, that a little piece of you goes on, but you've got to like what you wrote. And if and I've done that before, where I was paid or asked to write something that my heart just wasn't in, and you can tell, you can just tell.
Right.
And even there's some even famous writers that you can tell sometimes, they get the paycheck, and all power to them. You've been struggling for years, and finally the publisher or somebody gives you a big check, or you write the big giant sequel to some, giant soulless Hollywood sequel. Hell yes, take the money, do your best job, and turn that into the best you can. But when it's yours, it's like, this book is mine. Whatever art you're doing, whatever picture you're drawing, whatever musical composition, do what you want to do. And if people don't like it, people don't like it. And some of the best art ever in this world has come out of that. And you read about bands or music or books. I mean, Dune was, nobody wanted to publish Dune. It's one, a lot of people don't realize that Frank Herbert went to the Chilton auto manual people and basically self-published Dune. It was the first and I think only novel they ever did, but nobody wanted anything to do with Dune. And a horror example, which I'm a gigantic fan of, Larry Correia. If you guys know the Monster Hunter International series, he's also done the Grim Noir Chronicles, which I absolutely love. I'm still astounded that there aren't TV shows or movies, but when I only met him once at one of his signings, and he gave a terrific show and a great guy. I've read all his books and I just love his style. But the first Monster International, everyone passed. And he just basically said, you know what? And it was kind of before self-publishing was a thing, but the way I understand it is he kind of self-published it, and he used his contacts and he pushed it. And I remember when I came across it, I just remember laughing and giggling. And I've recommended to 100 people to read the book in series. I recommend that more than my own books, because I've never had that much fun reading a book, and the characters are amazing, and the story and the world. And obviously the Monster Hunter International world has grown, but that's another guy that just, you know what? He did it. He just said, to heck with it. This is what I'm going to write. I don't care if they like it. And he told this amazing story that's turned into wild success. And I believe the story that I read is one of the publishers came back to him and said, we were wrong when it started selling. We were wrong. Can we publish you? And again, I'd love to run into him again someday. But at first and foremost, I'm a giant fan. And when I read something or see something, I like, heck with my crap. Read this. This is way better than any crap I'm going to write.
That's awesome. Eric, I just, before we let you go, I just have to say one thing, though. Your book has only good reviews. on Amazon and Goodreads thus far. So that is a great sign right there. We will go with that.
I'm waiting. I always tell the story that there's it's probably still on there on IMDb. There's a lot of 1-star reviews of Ice Spiders, but on IMDb, there was one in particular, and I published it like probably 8-10 years ago on my Facebook. The guy just literally destroyed the movie and the script, the acting, everything about it. And mainly the script. He focused on the script. And I copied and pasted it to my Facebook. I'm like, this guy gets me. He knew exactly what I wanted. It's a big, dumb, giant spider monster movie. But yeah, it's when you read the reviews, some of them hurt. And when people, there's bad reviews come in and people haven't obviously read the book. It's totally okay to not like it. It's not for you. That's completely fine. And it's okay if you've met me. Most people like me that I know of. But if for some reason I made you mad or cut you off in traffic, don't take it out on me. If you have the ability to, there's writers out there that I, through whatever reason, politics or something else that I'm not into, but I still revere their books. And you know what, you're in the home of it. H.P. Lovecraft in Rhode Island. Yep. And there's been lots of conversations about that. He was a man of a different time, and there was a lot of racism and things in there. But at the same time, you can't separate that from the works. And like you say, does that worm its way into the story? If it does, I don't necessarily want to read it. But a great book is a great book. And again, thank you for noticing the reviews are positive. I'm crossing my fingers they stay that way, but I'm waiting. Somebody's not going to like it, or they're going to say that the rules that I have for one-on-one basketball, I actually had to play with a little bit to make a certain plot point work. But it's I think basketball and sports fans are going to get it and like what I do with that. So
that's why I say I think we'll appreciate that.
Sure.
So
that's why I'm hoping that sports fans like it, because as I've said before, I kind of the focus of this is that it's mainly in sports, but also in other types of either writing or filmmaking or whatever, is that obsession to do a job, to finish something, or in this case, fix a family curse and fix something that a curse that happened and free souls of this terrible, horrible thing. And the main character goes beyond reason to achieve that goal, even when it's pointed out to him that he's nuts. And that's actually some of my favorite sequences that I wrote. There's a sequence in the back where he's basically going down into this gladiatorial magical game alone because all the friends and everyone have left and said, dude, you need to quit. You can't win. And he's basically like, oh, I'm going to go. And the writing is, the words are, he started the game alone and he'll finish it alone, and death will come to anything that stands in his way. And he's admitted he's got to go in thinking he can win, even no matter it's Han Solo. Never tell me the odds. No matter what the odds are against you, I am going to go down shooting. I'm going to literally and metaphorical in this case. So, and that's me with the book. I'm going down shooting.
Eric, thank you so much for coming on here. This was really nice. I loved the stories. I loved hearing some of the background of, the behind the scenes stuff, and just hearing your story and the authenticity to you. So we really appreciated this. Thank you for doing this.
I appreciate you guys having me on, and it's always great to meet new horror people and just get the word out, whether it's my book or somebody else's book or movie. Just love it. Appreciate the people behind it that put their heart and soul into it, because there's people out there sweating and bleeding and dying for a review, for just a kind word, or a hey, that was the best movie ever, and hopefully $1 billion at the box office. But that's a whole different world.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, are you on social media or anything? Can you let the listeners know how they can find you, to interact with you, and also how they can find your books?
Yeah, I'm not a giant social media hound, but I'm mostly on Instagram, and I have to be on Facebook to put the word out. But I'm Raging Eric, RAGINGERIC. I'm easily findable, and I usually, even when I put up pictures, I like to put little writings about thoughts about life or stupidity below things, and try to make it interesting and interactive. The book is on Amazon, like of course every book is, because that's where about every single book is sold. But it's also at this point just ebook and print book, also for Nook and Kobo readers. My wonderful audiobook friend Graydon Schlichter, who's done the previous 4 anthologies, is working on the audiobook right now. So that'll be out a little bit later in the year, hopefully before Halloween and all the spooky season and all that. But I'm really excited because he does a kick-ass job on the audiobook. So, but for now, Amazon, Nook, and Goodreads, as you said, Whatever Happened to Uncle Ed, and also my anthologies, Hell Comes to Hollywood, 18 Wheels of Horror, that's my biggest hit so far, Trucking Horror, and 18 Wheels of Science Fiction.
Awesome. All right. Thank you again, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you check out Whatever Happened to Uncle Ed on Amazon or wherever you can find it. And Eric, thanks. Have a great one. And everybody will be back next week with a new episode. Have a great night.
You too. Stay scary.
Game over.